Okay, so thank you all this morning for attending this meeting of the Black Isle and Easter Ross Area Committee. Please note that this meeting will be recorded and thereafter archived for public access via the Highland Council's YouTube channel. So good morning everyone, hope you're all well and hope you had a lovely chance to have a wee bit of a break over the recess over summer. Before we get started today, the first thing I'd like to do is welcome Richard Cross to our committee and congratulations on your election, which must seem like a lifetime ago now, on the other side of the summer. If you want to say a few words, you're more than welcome, Richard.
Well, very briefly, thank you for the warm welcome. I'm struggling to find my way around systems, not so much buildings, but systems certainly. But I'll get there. I don't anticipate being able to contribute an awful lot today, but I will be learning and getting into the way of things. So thank you for the welcome.
No, lovely to have you here. And I would also like, before we get started formally, to thank Derek Loudon. He is going to be very much sorely missed in this committee and many others around the council, and I know for one that I am going to hugely miss his breadth of knowledge and expertise in so many areas. And I know that other members may wish to say something to that effect, but yes, Derek, if you're watching this at all, we're missing you very much. Maureen.
Yes, I 100% agree with you on that, Lindsay. Derek's a wealth of information from, especially down our way, but there again, he's a wealth of information of how the council itself operates. So he won't be lost to us because I've got his email. And yes, the poor chap will be asked a lot of questions over the next while, I can assure you of that. And it's been great working with Derek. We all got on very well in our ward, so we will miss him.
Oh, thank you. I think those are lovely words. Marvin May, what are you thinking?
Really just to echo what's already been said, and Derek served with such patience and kindness, and he was always so incredibly welcoming, especially as a young councillor. He was kind of took me under his wing and was always open to give me advice and help whenever I needed it, and it was very much appreciated, and he's going to be very much missed. So when you're speaking to him next morning, tell him we're all asking for him and hoping him well.
Thank you so much. Okay, so Fiona, if we can start off with doing the apologies for absence, please.
Thanks, Chair. So I've got apologies from Councillor Atkin, and I will quickly go around everybody else. If you just let me know if you're here for the recording, please. It's so Councillor Coghill. I can see you talking, although I think you're muted, but I can see you there. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
I'll just say yes, I am here, but I have to leave. I've just had a call to take me away, so unfortunately I'm going to have to leave you.
Right. Okay. So actually, apologies.
My apologies, folks.
No bother.
Okay, we'll catch up again. Thanks.
Councillor Collier, I don't think is here yet. So, Councillor Cross is here.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Dundas.
Yeah, present. Thanks, Fiona.
Thank you. Councillor Edmondson.
Present.
Thank you. And Chair, you're here. Councillor McCallum.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Ross.
Here, present. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And the next thing to cover is if anybody had any declarations of interest on any of the matters on today's agenda. Fantastic. I'm assuming that's a no. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is that we're being asked to note that the recess powers which were granted on the meeting of the 26th of June have not been exercised over the recess period. Is that happy to be noted by everybody?
Noted.
Fantastic. And then number 4, the exciting item of the day. We are on to the police area report, and I'm very pleased to see that we have got Chief Inspector Callum Smith with us. So, Callum, if it would be possible to hand over you to a brief introduction to the report, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, everyone. Good to be with you. Hopefully you've all got in front of you the report that I'm going to refer to at the moment. So it's the reporting period is between 1st of April 2024 and 31st of March this year. The data within it does cover the whole North Highland area, so everything north of the Kissel Bridge up to Caithness and east and west of that. I spent a bit of time this morning trying to break that down further into the ward areas that are covered today, so hopefully I'll be able to give you a bit more localized detail on that. The introduction that's in there, it touches on kind of the bits I'll speak about anyway. Just the data is one part of how we come about the work that we carry out and the priorities that we focus on. COVID, I hate mentioning it all the time, but COVID is still part of that 5-year data, so it's just to bear that in mind as we look at the 5-year averages. There's other bits there I'll kind of come on to. So violent crime has increased a degree. House breakings have shown a bit of a rise as well, and road safety features heavily in terms of the work that we carry out. But again, I'll come on to that as we go forward. So just going straight on to page number 4, the first of the 6 priority areas there, so road safety and road crime there. So you see there fatalities. We're fortunate that fatalities have dropped away in terms of they're at their lowest point they have been at any point in the last 5 years. There's still 3 fatalities last year, three too many ultimately, and 1 would be too many. So it's their figures. I don't really like talking about them much because we're talking about human lives there. So, but everything we do around about road safety, we tackle it. But it is dropped away, thankfully. So drink and drug drive offences there, you see it there. So effectively we're continuing to catch a lot of people in terms of driving over the limit. A lot of that now is unfortunately around about our ability to, was fortunate in the sense we're able to catch people, but unfortunately they're actually doing it. So in terms of drug driving, there's a lot of people driving under the influence of drugs. Drink driving is still capturing a lot, but we're detecting a lot of people driving under the influence of drugs, and our ability to do that has improved recently with technology improvements. So that's keeping the numbers high, and frankly, we'll probably keep the numbers high. So you see we have dropped down. So the last year, so the data for the council ward areas we're talking about at the moment isn't in that report you've got in front of you, but I will give it to you now. So it's so last year that was 130 offences for the ward areas that are covered in this report, and last year 23-24. The 24-25 year, the accounting year is 95. So there's a slight drop off in terms of those figures. Speeding offences, similarly, there was 173 offences for the specific ward areas we're looking at in the 23-24 year, and in the 24-25 year there was 91 offences detected. Both those figures are consistent with the North Highland figures as a whole. I think you'll find as I give you localised figures right over the course of the report, you'll find they're very reflective of the numbers, but just the averages and the trends, just the numbers might be slightly different. The speeding offences dropping off there, the amount that we've detected across North Highland is at the lowest that there has been for the last 5 years at any point. Part of that is because we do carry on detecting offences, but we also do educational work, and actually we don't necessarily always go forward to charge people. So there's a level in there that we don't try and educate as much as we do also to detect. I suppose just the bar graphs at the bottom there just show the fact that the North Highland area as a whole remains, when you look at the whole Highland mainland, it's for the 5-year average, the 23-24 year period and the 24-25 year period, it's pretty much the highest areas for people being caught drink and drug driving in the Highland mainland. I don't have answers to that beyond actually highlighting the kind of rurality of some of the areas we're talking about, and potentially the lack of public transport being available that potentially encourages people to take a risk. But anyway, we're capturing them anyway. So that's the road safety side of things. Moving on to page number 5, antisocial behaviour, disorder and violence. So the first headline there, murder. We've had thankfully we've had no murders in the 24-25 year period. We'd had 2 in the 23-24 year period. One of those was in Caithness, the other one was in Allness. The one in Allness has just been gone through the High Court, and the person's been sent to prison or sent to a Youth Offenders Institute. The assault details there. So this is the assault and the serious assault. That's what I mentioned in the kind of summary I gave at the beginning there. So we have noticed a rise there. That's something we've been working alongside partners with. Our detection rates remain very high for those. So serious assaults, you'll see there, serious assaults, it's 29 and 43 is the 23-24 and 24-25 figures for North Highland. If I take that into real terms for the council ward areas we're talking about here, so we've had 15 serious assaults for the 23-24 year period and 17 for the 24-25 year period. That's I mean, it's down on the 5-year and 3-year averages, but it's up on the well, it's actually no, the 24-25 year is up on all the 5 years altogether. We do have a 100% detection rate for serious assaults for the council area we're talking about, council wards we're talking about here. So we are doing what we can in terms of detection. Prevention is slightly more challenging. We've looked into the details of some of these, the rise in violence, and we can't even put it down to actually specific groups of people. Some of the actual people who are involved in the violence actually is probably way outside the age range we would expect. We're talking about people in their 30s, 40s. Normally would expect that to be people in their maybe late teens, early 20s, mid 20s, but it's sporadic in terms of where they're happening as well. We're finding them in licensed premises, they're in private houses, they're on the street. It's just it's challenging. So we are working heavily with housing around about that. Weekly meetings with housing to try and pull that together, and we try and patrol the areas where we see more of a spike. But yeah, it's an ongoing piece of work that we're working on there. So again, assaults, we've got 73.9% detection rate for the council ward areas we're talking about, which is slightly higher than the North Highland average. Again, we've had a slight rise for the council ward area. We're talking about council ward areas. We're talking about 228 assaults have been committed in the 23-24 year, and there's a slight rise in that to 243 in the last year. So that's where we're at with that. Drug possession offences, we're slightly down in terms of people being caught in terms of possession. So it's 142 for the specific council ward areas in this meeting for the 23-24 year, and the 24-25 accounting year is 116 people being caught in possession of drugs. I'll come on to that a wee bit more around about supply cases, which actually kind of feeds into that later on in the report. I suppose more generally around about the antisocial behaviour and violence piece, we're doing a lot of work with housing. So we meet with them weekly. There are some areas that we've found there's been spikes. So, for example, Allness, I know Dingwall's not kind of represented in this meeting, but Allness has had a level of a spike in that kind of the assaults we're talking about, and we carry on working again, as we say, to try and kind of prevent where we can. The text there talks about the harm prevention officer and the No Lives Better Lives. I think I've mentioned that before, so that's work as well. So I know I'm posing through this a wee bit, but I'm just aware I don't want to go on too much and I'll leave it open for questions at the end. So page number 6 there talks about acquisitive crime, housebreaking and fraud. You'll see on there, I've mentioned this before, it's a significant challenge for us in terms of the detection rates. So detection rates actually, so 9.1% of detection rates for house break-ins. That's contextual to a spate of caravans that were broken into in the Dornoch area towards the end of the accounting period for 24-25. That was, I think it was something like 20 odd caravans were broken into over one night. That was one person. That should have been detected now, but because it was detected this year, it's not reflected in the detection rates that we're looking at here. But equally, it shows us as having a much poorer detection rate than we otherwise do. Nonetheless, it's still not great. I'm not going to sit here and actually paint a prettier picture than the reality shows. We've got 21.1% detection rate for the council ward areas represented here for house break-ins. That's in context of that, we had 19 house break-ins for the 24-25 year period, which is up to 2 on the previous year. So the detection rate is better for the council ward areas here for house break-ins, but still it's challenged. It's challenged by the rurality and the investigative opportunities that provides us. Frauds, it's 14% detection rate for frauds. It's 13.1, slightly down for the council ward areas here. Again, that we have victims of fraud generally in our area. Often with frauds and how they're operating at the moment, they are generally happening in other areas of the country and indeed abroad, and they've been targeted online. So we do a lot of victims. You see, they mentioned banking protocol, partial scam fraud. We do a lot of work with partners to try and identify vulnerable people who may become victim of frauds and try and stop it from happening. Shopliftings, theft by shoplifting, we have seen a decrease, quite a significant decrease. It's positive news there. So across the North Highland area and across the council ward areas represented here. So the council ward areas represented here in the 23-24 accounting period, we had 175 theft by shopliftings. That's down dramatically, down to 66 for the 24-25 period. Our detection rate is high for that, 72.6%. And it's actually 72.7% for the council ward areas here. That's high for nationally as well. So that generally, on the whole, is probably a picture that may not get better than that. That's actually it's excellent, and we want to improve on that. But also aware that actually 66 is a significant drop. I would just highlight it just for your own information. So the Scottish Government have released a £3 million budget for a national initiative into theft by shopliftings. That's partly to assist with the national picture of shopliftings being in general trending up the way, whilst the detection rates are generally trending down the way. There are a number of reasons for that. Sometimes some of the work that we seek to do as police doesn't interact too well with some of the corporate views of shops effectively. So, for example, they may want to have, a shop may want to have, and there's a literal example, steaks on meat steaks as a bargain buy, for example, and they have that at the very front of their shop. Sometimes we would then have people coming in, stealing the steaks and running out very quickly. The preventative advice we would seek to give is to try and move that temptation away into further into the shop. The shop don't want to do that because they've got their own view around about profits and so on and so forth. So sometimes there's a bit of the interaction that works there, doesn't go hand in hand, but we do carry on work with that, and that national initiative, we will be bidding for some of that money in the North Highland area. Theft of motor vehicles, we've got 19 for the 23-24 period in the council ward areas represented, and 11 for the 24-25 period. So that's gone down. It's the lowest it's been for the 5-year period, and the detection rate is sitting at 76% or just about there. More often not, without seeking to demean that in any way, shape, or form, but just to give some context to that, some of those figures at least comes down to people who know each other. They leave a party, for example, they take somebody's car and they drive for a period of time and they leave it. We don't have an issue in either the council ward area or North Highland area as a whole around about people randomly coming along and stealing cars, so long may that continue. Page number 7, So again, I mentioned this the last time we met, but some of the figures around this are more challenging because the hate crime bill came in and has changed effectively the definition of what is hate crime and the protected characteristics of people and who can be a victim of a hate crime. As a result of that, I can give you real figures in terms of the 24, 25 year period, but I can't give you the 5 year, 3 year average in the previous year. The same for domestic crime as well. But so in terms of for rape figures, so we've got, just localizing this again, so in the 23-24 year period, we've got 18 reported rapes in the council ward areas we're talking about. In the 24-25 year period, we've got 33. So it's a significant rise there. That is very much in keeping with what we're finding locally, nationally. I would want to put it down, and I do feel it's the right thing to. I know it's subjective, but there is a rise in terms of victim confidence coming forward. The police, we do a massive amount of work with partner agencies around about that now in terms of third sector agencies as well. Rape and sexual assault services, Highland, rape crisis. We do massive amounts of work with them to try and actually support victims and give them the best possible service and experience from that service. We'd rather they weren't experiencing it at all, to be frank, obviously. So that's a rising picture there in terms of the situation. Our detection rate for the ward areas we're talking about is 51.5%. That's very much in keeping with national averages, if I'm being honest. That can go up and down though, because if you look last year, it was down. If you look back 3 years ago on 3 year average, it's significantly up about 70%. So it does go up and down. Anywhere around about the 50% is in keeping with what we would expect in terms of actually that crime type. We'd want it to be higher, but unfortunately challenging in terms of the investigation. Domestic crime and hate crime, beyond highlighting those figures, and the detection rates has been 65 and 68% respectively. I can't add much more to that. There's still areas of society that we find are difficult. And still exist, obviously. Hate crime is something we clamp down on immediately at any point that we find it. Missing persons there, you just see there. So it's at the lowest point it's been in the last 3 years. We're down 3 on last year. The main things we work on around about there is children who are subject to look after children or care experienced young people, because we find that they have higher prevalences of going missing. So. That's that, and then finally, or second to last, page number 9, just touching on what I said earlier on about possession of drugs. I think I mentioned before the last time I was here, we've introduced a proactive team, North Highland area. That's if you look at page number 9 there, and the amount of drug supply offences we've detected. This is where I feel this is kind of working. The proactive team that we've introduced is starting to work towards that a wee bit more. So we're up, the 2024-25 year, we're up. So again, taking the localised figures for the ward areas we're talking about here, we're up. So 23 offences have been detected this year. That's in comparison to 19 the previous year. So it's a rise there. The trend is rising as well for North Highland area as well. We're up. The highest we've been at any point in the last 5 years. A lot of the drugs that we find are still local people involved in local drug dealing. We have a very small area that comes out of county lines that tends to spill out of Inverness more than anything else into more than anything else into maybe Allness and Invergordon areas. But generally, it's local people that we would aware of ourselves who are in local areas who are still involved in drugs. And then page number 10 finally is counter-terrorism. Beyond just highlighting that as a priority that we continue to look at and will continue to look at with our partners, there's not much I can add to that. The prevent work that we do is the key area there, is where we see anyone who's at risk of being radicalised start to come alongside social work, education, housing, anybody else that we can to look to support anyone who's vulnerable to that and educate them so that they don't fall victim to radicalisation. And Then the last few pages are just the crime stats as a whole, North Highland, and just gives you figures. I suppose the only thing I would highlight about that is in terms of road traffic issues that you all rightly at times point out to me, and your constituents will come to you about. If you look at group number 8 on page number 13, it highlights the consistent attention to detail that we seek to give to road traffic offences and crimes, because we're aware that it has such an impact on our local communities. So that's me, thanks. I think I went over 10 minutes there. I was told to keep it to 10 minutes, but that's about as good as I can make it. Thanks.
No, really appreciate it, Callum, and I do appreciate the detail that goes into this report. I've only got one question for you myself, and then I'll open it up to other members. Now, obviously, we've had a missing person in the Black Isle recently, and one of the things I wondered if you might be able to shed some light on, in terms of just missing persons and generally, is obviously the one I'm referring to has had quite a lot of media, but I'm talking more in general about maybe older people. Do the police use the Herbert protocol here in terms of people with dementia? And in terms of this younger person, I think the big concern was that obviously the police found this missing person but were obliged to let them go, and they went missing again. Where does that stack up with, the protecting somebody who's quite vulnerable? And if you could answer that, and then I'll open it up to other members who maybe have questions.
Thanks, Councillor. So yes, we do use the Herbert protocol. So we work with care homes for the elderly, for example, to try and kind of mitigate people going missing, and social work the same with people who are actually at home who are vulnerable in terms of adult support and protection, such like. So we definitely do that. We do the same actually under a different protocol for children, looked after children. We do the same there. The principles being there with looked after children, whereby, so for example, if one of my children were told to come back at 6 o'clock at night and they don't come back at 6 o'clock at night, I don't then report them missing to the police at 6:15, for example. Historically, that was what was happening with looked after children, and sometimes it was then throwing them into the policing arena, if you want to put it like that, before they really needed to be. But I understand also that care homes are responsible to look after these children as well, and we're a corporate parent as well, so there's a bit of that to it as well. But so in terms of the second part of your question, Councillor, so we do, it's an unfortunate reality that the figures there, I don't have the data in terms of actually how many of them would be repeat missing people, but those numbers of 167, 170 odd people it was that we had missing last year in the North Highland region, I would suggest that a large or a decent proportion of them would be repeat missing people. It's just simply the reality of, I mean, it's a good thing ultimately, but I mean, it's a free society. People can choose to obviously come and go missing as they choose. If somebody then highlights a worry for them, is out of character, they're missing episode, then we would become involved, and ultimately we just can't continue to do that every single time it happens. It is. I'm not going to paint a picture that's not reality here. It obviously becomes a challenge on our resources. It starts to actually take our resources away from other areas. But ultimately, where there is a risk to somebody's welfare, that will always trump everything else we have. We do, I suppose, just as a positive note, we do work heavily with, we've got a missing person coordinator who takes forward work with social work and adult services and social work and children's services where it's relevant. It becomes complex. You start then to get into the world of mental health and how society as a whole is and services as a whole are interacting with that, and the individual ultimately interacts with the services. So it's a bit of a cycle to that.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, definitely. Do any other members have any questions? Oh, Marvin, maybe we'll start with you.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the report. It's always incredibly detailed, which I very much appreciate. I know it's something that we've talked about in the past, but I was just wondering if I could get a wee bit more information in terms of the rapes going up, which is something nobody wants to see. I was just wondering if you possibly had a breakdown in terms of whether that increase is due to historic rapes victims coming forward, or whether these are predominantly current issues that have happened. And I was curious, on page 7 it says detection rate's 26.7. So I was just wondering if you might be able to give us a bit more information on how you figure out your detection rates, just so I've kind of got that knowledge in the back of my mind. And I also wanted to ask you if there was anything that we as a council can do to help support your efforts and all the work that you're doing, because I know you are doing some incredible work, and I'm really pleased to hear that victim confidence is increasing. So I just wanted to put it out there to see if there's anything we could do to support your efforts.
Thanks, Chris. So in terms of the, I mean, I can tell you with absolute confidence. So the numbers going up are in relation to people generally reporting offences, what we would class as non-recent offences. So what we would class as recent. So the definition of recent police in terms of sexual offences is anything in the past week. Anything that's reported to us in the past week is still within a forensic window of opportunity for us to some extent. Different areas of forensics fall off after 24, 72, 96 hours. But 7 days is recent for us. Non-recent becomes anything after 7 days. So by a significant distance, the reports that we receive are non-recent rapes, if you want to put it like so, 7 days or older at the point of reporting. That's what brings our figures up to where they're at now. I mean, I think they've been going up now for significant. You see they're up. The North Highland average 64 the past year, and the average for the last 5 years and 3 years is 47, 48. It's just consistently going up. I am really confident to say that is because of how we are now interacting with their third sector partners and with the victims as a whole. So, for example, if a victim of a sexual offence comes forward to us now and makes us aware of that, for example, but they say they don't want to speak to us now, we will not follow that through. We will speak to them again maybe within the next 24, 48 hours or a week, for example, on their timeframes. If they simply don't want to speak to us at that point at all, we won't follow them. We won't do it. We will record it. We will walk away and we'll put our support measures in place. We will refer them and so on and so forth. What we tend to then find is people then coming forward as that same person will come back to us 3-4 months down the line when the timing is right for them. If I'm being honest with you, and I don't take much pleasure in saying this, but if I'm being honest, previously that's not what we did. If you go back to what we did 10, 12 years ago, we weren't as victim focused as we are now. So we do everything we can to go with the victim. So that would be, so the numbers are up because of that. I'm confident seeing that. The detection rate, so yeah, you highlighted North Highland detection rate 26%. Obviously the wards that were represented today are 51% for the detection rate, so it's better. But the detection rate, and this is where the detection rates are, they're a figure. I'm as interested in, to some extent, I'm as interested in a quality assurance basis of actually how the victim has found their journey from reporting to conviction. That's maybe a more important marker, but that's a subjective marker. That so if somebody reports, so for example, if somebody reports July, so August, if somebody reports a rape this month, it'll be recorded in the figures for the 24, so April 25 through to March 26 figures in terms of a recorded rape. But if it's not detected until, as often will be the case, it might not be detected until a year's time for one reason or another because of the nature of the inquiry, because we might not find a further victim of the same suspect for maybe 10 months, 12 months because of just the nature of the inquiry. That detection will only then come through the following year, and it will be in the following. So there's a level here that actually you can have rises in detection from 1 year to the next. To some extent, the important detection rates are kind of your 5-year detection rates and your 3-year detection rates, which I don't have for you, but I can go away and get for you for the areas we're talking about, and that might give you a better. We're generally sitting about the 50s, mid 50s, but as I say, like I think the year before last, when I looked at it this morning, the detection rate for the ward areas we're talking about here was in the 70%, and now we're in the 50%. So it does fluctuate, and that would be expected. And I suppose the final thing, in terms of the council side of things and how you can maybe help, I would probably highlight the work that the third sector agencies do, if I'm really honest with you, and their funding streams. So I think, I mean, as a police officer, I'm probably not the best placed person to be actually marking our own homework, but I just know how we go about in everything, just compassion and trying to be decent and trying to be considerate, and how we engage with victims of all crime, but particularly victims of sexual crime. I'm comfortable that we do everything we can around about that now, and I'm comfortable we have the means to actually investigate that through and go from start to finish with it. What I sometimes worry is the third sector agencies and the work that they do is massive. If you were to take them out the loop, my word, the victims of sexual offences, domestic abuse and such like, there's a huge gap at that point, massive gap. And they do it for far less than the public sector services do it, if I'm being honest. But their funding at times can be from year to year, and that really challenges them. So I suppose from a council point of view, a councillor's point of view, I suppose any time that you're aware of anything that is involving funding of these agencies that support the vulnerable victims, that's probably a massive thing I would suggest. But
thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Maureen, it'll be over to you next.
Okay, thanks very much, Callum, for all of this. I'm probably going to pick something out that's maybe not highlighted in the report, but I think it's very important. It's the detection of vehicles that have no MOT insurance or road tax. We seem to just have so much of that in our communities now, and it's the same individuals who are quite often involved in the drugs and antisocial behaviour. Is there a working together with the council, the DVLA, some joint up thinking or joint up approach, that because you know these families, and it is a real problem in many of our areas within our ward. And I believe if that was taken into consideration and looked at more seriously, perhaps figures would look a bit better, because I know that these families, individuals are maybe a bit afraid to approach them, and it is a big problem in communities. So I don't know what your approach to it is, but it is a big problem.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. So I suppose the rough rule of thumb is, and this isn't absolute, so it's just almost some kind of guiding kind of figure. So where, because this is something that's brought up often, Councillor, as I know you'll be aware of, where a car is driving or moving on the roads, we as police will address that. That's where we will kind of really come into our own, I suppose, in terms of insurance offences, tax offences, MOT offences, such like. Where a vehicle has been parked and particularly abandoned on roads, which abandoned subjective, but left for a long period of time in a poor state of repair and such like, we often will then kind of come to the council to try and support the work around about that, and kind of try and take action around about the removal of said vehicles. I know, I think we're back about 3 or 4 months ago now, I know we had some kind of engagement with, pardon my, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the waste and disposal side of council side of things. And I think at the time they were going through some kind of review of their process and procedures around about that. So I'm not sure where that's at now. They'd obviously have to speak to that themselves, but that's where certainly we would kind of probably need their support. We do work at times hand in hand in terms of, we always work hand in hand in terms of actually communication, but we do at times we'll work hand in hand in terms of actually kind of some kind of operations, and same with DVLA. They'll kind of come and do some sporadic work in local areas, and we'll work with them when that happens. But more generally, we will deal with vehicles when they're moving on the roads and address that. If a vehicle has been left and abandoned and such like, then we'll highlight that to council and look for their support at that point.
And it's not even just the abandoned cars, Colin. It's I see these cars driving around the community all the time. Now, if I lifted the phone and told you, blah blah, it's on the road at the moment, we wouldn't get an officer down to it, and I wouldn't expect that.
Yeah.
But I just think there should be more sporadic going to places where there's only one way in and one way out of some of the villages.
Yeah.
And instead of sitting on the main A9 with a speed camera, it's detecting these individuals. One passed me on Friday. I was going probably about 45, 50 miles an hour, and he must have been going 80 to 90 miles an hour. I got the fright of my life, and smoke coming out the back, and I knew he was not insured, he was not road taxed. So if he'd hit me,
yeah,
you know.
No, I appreciate that. And I suppose what I would say, just in general senses, I mean, if there's ever areas that any of you feel that we're not focused on, that we should be focusing on, if you just let us know, we will look to actually address that where we can. I mean, we do ultimately. There's other areas up by Lairg, for example, that we've done work around with that, and that's come back directly off some of the input of councillors and so on and so forth. So we will definitely react to anything that you report to us and take that forward wherever we can. So,
Yeah.
Thank you for that. John, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Callum. Again, I've got quite a few questions. I'll try and make them brief. On the tables there, you've got YTD. Now, I always interpret that as year to date.
Yeah.
But does that mean that 23-24 figures are not finalised? So that's one question. Okay. I'm glad that Norman asked about detection rate, because that's one thing that puzzled me about 101% detection rate for the drug possession offences.
Yeah.
But in some ways it's the conviction rate, it's how good your case is that you give to the Procurator Fiscal and results in the crime actually being detected. I'm not sure where the detection comes in, when it's handed over and or when a successful prosecution is undertaken. On page 12, you just seem to mention English cities. Now, I know that Police Scotland have been doing sterling work with gangs in Edinburgh, but are you saying that the county lines crime is just confined to from coming over the border, or does it include Edinburgh and Glasgow? Later on today, we're going to be looking at a 30-mile-an-hour speed limits, and if you look at the representations from the people during the consultation process, many of them remain unconvinced that actually the speed limit will be policed. So I wondered if we can get any kind of reassurances on that. And finally, and this is something that comes up, well, one thing I'd like to say is I'm very concerned about the road numbers and the fatalities. In the last 2 weeks in the area, we've had 2 road deaths, one very close locally to me. So, you know, and I know the people who tried to resuscitate the poor people at the roadside. So, you know, we're already up to 2. So anything, you know, I note those things, but the same area is quite often bumped into by cars or lorries, and the council has to pick up the bill for the damage because the third party, the council, is not notified by the person having the accident. Now that's a criminal offence, and it seems to me that the insurance companies are complicit in this criminal offence, in that actually the vehicles are probably repaired under the people's insurance, but the Highland Council never get told, and that comes off the Highland Council budget. So when a bridge parapet's damaged, costs 30 grand, it comes off their bottom line. So I wondered if there's anything the council can do or the police can do to ensure that this criminal activity and fraud essentially is stopped, and we can start repairing our roads rather than the bridges that people have crashed into. Thank you very much for being so patient.
No, thanks, Councillor. So I'm just trying to pick that off as we go through it. So the year to date, you're right. So the YTD is year to date. So on this particular report, we're talking about full accounting years, for example. So sometimes the next report, for example, may only be for a 6-month period of, so it might be 31st of March through to end of September, for example, this year. So, but at the moment, it's actually quite nice and tidy because it's full. So the YTD doesn't actually, it's full calendar, full accounting years effectively. So that's more simple this period. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The detection rate that you highlighted there, that's exactly why you're getting, sometimes you're getting 101% detection rates, for example, because I mean, how can you have 101% of 100% detected? I mean, the only way it's happening is because we're recording a crime undetected one accounting year, and then it's taken a period of time to detect it, and that particularly kind of kicks in around about, for example, January, February, March, April, May, June time, for example. So January, February, March time, we've got a report of a crime at that period. That's recorded in last year's accounting year, and then it might not detect through till April, for example, April, May time, and then the detection comes through in this accounting year. So that's, you're right. That's how the detection rate works, and that's why, to some extent, that you're looking at more longer term periods of detection rates to try and get a better flavour for actual performance there. Conviction rates, I completely take on board what you're saying. So I don't have any figures around about how happy the Crown Office would actually come with that. The conviction rates, that would be, yeah, you get into very complex territory there in terms of, so when we charge somebody with a criminal offence, we deem that there is a sufficiency of evidence to charge somebody with a criminal offence. We report that to Procurator Fiscal, and at that point we record that as a detection. I would highlight that the more serious the crime, the more, so sexual crimes, particularly rapes, murders, for example, they are in hand in glove with the Crown Office in terms of when we charge somebody. The lesser crimes, in terms of the other crimes beyond that, we make a decision, charge somebody, and then report them. What then happens to them after that becomes complex in terms of assessments, in terms of the benefit to the public and community as a whole, in terms of whether it's warrants taking a case to the court. There may be other reasons why there might be reasons that a case doesn't make it, legitimate reasons why a case doesn't go through to court that have nothing to do with the amount of evidence that actually is there to actually convict. So the conviction rates would be difficult relative to detection rates because it changes at that point. But county lines, so maybe I kind of, I'm not sure I put across wrongly, but we do have county lines very much in Scotland. We've got county lines prevalent in all cities in Scotland, and very much so in Inverness as well. We've got a team based in Inverness who solely look at targeting county lines. What we do find is that there are some people who generally in the Allness and Invergordon area, for one reason or another, there are people who have staying sometimes who are linked into county lines, who are living in the county lines, or living, I say living, they only stay there for a week at a time, who will stay in Allness and Invergordon and then kind of be dealing drugs out of Inverness. But generally a lot of the activity is still happening in Inverness, but we definitely have county lines. I mean, actually we have bigger issues in the Inverness area than places like Glasgow have got contextually, because Glasgow have got already established criminality that actually is looking to hold on to their territory criminally, if you want to put it like that. And as a result of that, so some of these county lines come into areas which are seen as being an easier target, where the criminal enterprises aren't quite as established. So we definitely have county lines issues. And then probably just finally, just the cars crashing into bridges. I completely agree. It is a crime. It's a failure to stop, failure to report a road traffic accident. Where that's reported to us, we will progress that as per any other criminal inquiry. So something that I completely agree with. It's something that it leaves a cost to the public, and it's a crime ultimately to leave a road accident without reporting it. Mile-an-hour limits. We will. So 20-mile-an-hour limits are different than 30-mile-an-hour limits. We will focus on 20-mile-an-hour limit zones in terms of enforcement and education around about areas of vulnerability. So, for example, outside schools and such like, we'll target our activity simply because actually the amount of 20-mile-an-hour zones now is so significant. We have to actually decide where we're going to try and target our activity. That's not to say we wouldn't target other areas, 20-mile-an-hour or 30-mile-an-hour zones, or any other zone for that matter, that was highlighted as being an issue. We will, and we do. It's just trying to be targeted around about where we put resources. And just touching very finally, Councillor, on the point you made about fatalities, that's probably one of the key things we look at around about where we target our safety and enforcement work, is where we find serious injuries, a number of accidents or fatalities, or all of those things in areas. We will really start to focus our activity to try and bring that down, because we recognise some areas of roadways might be more dangerous and risky than others. So,
yeah. Thank you very much, Callum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much. Callum, can I thank you very much just for all your time and your input today, not only in presenting the report, but giving such thorough answers to all the questions. I really appreciate it.
No bother. So, thanks very much.
Thank you,
Chair.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
So I believe now we are moving on to item number 6, environmental health, and I believe it's is it yourself, Ewan, who's going to be helping us out with this topic here today?
Good morning, Chair. I represent housing repairs.
Oh, have I jumped ahead?
I want to make sure I haven't jumped the gun.
Yes, it is housing repairs. Sorry, I do apologise. I'm getting all excited to walk through this agenda. So,
no problem at all, Chair.
No, okay. So, and obviously we've probably all read the report, but are you wanting to say something before we go to questions and give us an outline?
Yeah, I'm happy to take you through the basics of the report, Chair, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Okay, dokes. So, good morning, all. Good morning, members. Good to see you. Some of you for the first time in my role as Repairs Manager North, taking over from Mr. Colin Sharp, that some of you may remember. I'm also joined by with one of my colleagues today, Sheila Blasquez. She's one of our principal repairs officers. So thank you for the opportunity to take you through the housing repairs performance report. At 2.1 of the report, members are asked to note the information provided on housing repairs in the period 1st of April 2025 to 30th of June 2025. Within the body of the report, section 6, this highlights the performance. Figures are taken against the average time to complete. So emergency repairs are first at 6.2. Table 1 here confirms that the target for Highland Council is 12 hours for an emergency response, and the Scottish Housing Network benchmark is 4 hours. But for members' clarity, this is the emergency time frame. This is just to make an issue safe. It's perhaps not the full repair, the full scope of remedial works. The initial engagement is just to make safe, and then we do for the follow-on works afterwards. Now, I'm pleased to draw your attention to the continued strong performance for emergency repairs. Black Isle at 2.8 hours, Cromarty Firth at 3.4, and Tain and Easter Ross at 6.2, which remains well within the 12-hour target. Moving on to 6.5, this is non-emergency repairs. This is slightly different. This is measured in working days rather than hours. So table 2, it confirms that the Council's target is 8.9 days for routine repairs, and the Scottish Housing Network benchmark is 9 days. So performance here continues also to be strong at 6.5 days, 8.4 days, and 7.5 days respectively for the three areas there. Moving on to section 7, which is void management, looking after our empty properties when tenants leave, and also come to sign back up again in another property. So this again is a measurement of days for the whole relet process. And again, for members' information, the clock starts when the outgoing tenant hands in their keys to housing, and then it's passed through to the repairs team to carry out inspection, remedial works to meet the empty home standard, and then we hand that back to our housing management colleagues to sign up and allocate new tenants. So it's the full process that's measured, members. So currently we're reporting 37.5 days for Black Isle, 104 days for Cromarty Firth, and 124.73 days for Tain and Easter Ross. Moving on to the capital programme summary. It's worth noting, members, that we're in a 5-year capital programme for investment. So this allows for some acceleration or underspend through that time span, and we can make adjustments where required. 8.3, it's worth highlighting as well that we've been engaged in a very successful working relationship with colleagues in the climate change and energy team. It's been beneficial because we can ensure additional value for money and welcome upgrades to properties by working with them to access grant funding to improve our properties. And finally, Chair, we've got our 2 appendix. Appendix 1, this itemises planned investment for members' information, and also itemises reactive capital. The difference between the two is that reactive capital is the team that I manage. That's our repairs and maintenance team. We engage that process when there's a response that we encounter in a property. It needs an immediate heating upgrade. The kitchen is end of life. We can no longer repair it. We must replace. Whereas the planned investment does what it says on the tin. It's an analysis of the housing stock, and then targeting programs to upgrade properties. Finally, Appendix 2, we've itemised for members the numbers that represent the expenditure to date. So number of kitchens, bathrooms, heating, doors, itemised for the respective areas. That's a general summary, Chair. Back to you. Happy to take any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. That's really, really useful. My question is very, very Black Isle based, I'm afraid. And that is, I note the really fantastic results in Q1. But what has caused that bounce from period 4 in the last year? Because obviously reducing the time to complete an emergency repair from 10 hours to just under 3 is astonishing. To go from 8 days for a non-emergency repair to 6 is also improvement. And then to nearly half the number of days for a void to be relet is brilliant. So are you able to describe what's happened within the service that's been able to demonstrate such a vast improvement in 1 quarter?
Good questions, Chair. Thank you. On the emergency performance, the 10.1 hours in Q4 to now 2.8, it is a good question. It seems like a stark contrast. What we find, Chair, is it's often down to administrative errors. When we mobilise for an emergency repair or a call out, which is out of hours, the jobs are tended to within time frame. However, quite often administrative errors when completing paperwork might, quite often we find some of our contractors might put the completion date as the date of invoice rather than date of completion on site. Now that's something that we have brought to their attention, and we're trying to carry out our due diligence checks so these don't slip through the net. Unfortunately, Chair, when it's reported, I can't retrospectively change that, but we do scrutinise the figures. We have weekly reports that come back in terms of, it's called a bad performance report. So we can analyse maybe where we've dropped the ball on the administrative side. So apologies for this one, but it's mostly down to administrative issues, because you'll appreciate that when we do a call out of hours, it's 10 to 2 that night. Sometimes the paperwork comes in with the wrong completion date. Regarding voids, we've been trying to give some particular attention to voids. Members may or may not be aware of the decision to reduce subcontractor spend in efforts to preserve the HRA account, because we're trying to build up our in-house voids team to try and do as much in-house for value for money. So on the Black Isle, you'll note, Chair, that there was only three number of relets in this quarter in Black Isle. So the performance perhaps is naturally a bit better with a lower number, but we are working with the team to try and expedite voids as much as possible, because some of the legacy decision is still impacting, as you can no doubt notice from the other 2 wards.
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Maureen, I'll let you in. However, we can't hear you.
No, that's okay. I was trying to find my mouse here. Thanks, Ewan. Actually, your answers to Lindsay was very helpful as well, because I'm noticing that in our particular area, Tain and Easter Ross, the voids number is really high. And I've been wondering for quite some time, in fact, since I joined council, is everybody gets a tenancy agreement and they're supposed to look after their homes. There's certain things that they can and they cannot do. Wrecking their home is one thing that they cannot do. And I happen to be aware of a few homes in the seaboard area which were totally wrecked. And they lay void for quite a considerable time, because obviously the investment to get them repaired was massive. Should we maybe not be inspecting homes a bit more on a regular basis to make sure that the homes don't get to that stage where they're actually just being totally wrecked? So I don't know, it's probably a housing issue more than yourself for repairs, but I just want to bring that point up, that, you know, we shouldn't be allowing our tenants to get the homes into that state. So I don't know if you have any comment to say on it, but I think it probably would go back to housing to enforce people to keep to their tenancy agreements.
Good question, Councillor Ross. Yes, you are quite right. We do come across, unfortunately, a number of properties that are require heavy investment to bring them back up to the empty home standard. I would agree with you that our housing management colleagues would lead on routine tenancy inspections, where they can obviously see that, evidence that for themselves, and then take appropriate steps in terms of the tenancy. But I'd like to offer some assurance that obviously our staff, whether it's contractors or our in-house trades, we're in a lot of properties on a regular basis carrying out routine repairs. So our teams do report back to us if they see anything particularly untoward, or even tenants who need some interaction, some assistance, because some tenancies may still result in a lot of remedial work needed, but perhaps they need support mechanisms rather than any negligence per se. So we do try and feed that back to our colleagues to then take appropriate action. Thank you.
Thank you for that. John, you have questions?
Yeah. Is it? Has anybody done like a cost benefit analysis in terms of reducing our subcontractors or contractors bill, but might seem to be having the consequence of our, what do they call the relet times going up. So the thinking being is that if we were to spend more money on contractors, then we would get a higher turnaround, and that would have two benefits. One, it would house people quicker, and secondly, we'd be getting the rental income. Has there been any cost benefit analysis, or is that just something done just purely to reduce costs? Because it's just the human cost of having homes not rented out, as well as things. And I understand there's improvements that are being made. And on page 24 of our report, it will be a different number. There's no count of loft insulation. Now, I'm just intrigued because loft insulation is actually one of the easiest and best ways of getting homes better insulated, rather than expensive wall cladding and floor insulation. Does that mean all our properties are up to speed, or perhaps you could just elaborate a bit more on the loft insulation? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Again, some good questions there. So in terms of the cost-benefit analysis, I don't have any information to hand, but I can have a look at that for you. In general terms, though, in order to work within the HRA budget, the risk was obviously being overspent, and that's a huge risk to the overall budget and the council as a whole. So I take your point that if we were to throw more maybe subcontractor resource, the voids would be turned around quicker. It would reduce void rental loss. And I understand what you're saying in terms of the benefit to housing tenants rather than leaving a property empty for some considerable time. It's a fine balancing act. I mean, ultimately, what we've done, Councillor, to try and offset that is we've made our voids team more robust. We've allocated more of our in-house trades resource to that team. We had a smaller team initially to concentrate on our temporary furnished accommodation or our homeless accommodation. But in response to ensuring the best expenditure of the HRA, because it's ring fence, we have to work within that confines. We can't use general fund for our houses. As a way to combat that, we've strengthened our voids team with additional trades to try and get through that. I think one of the biggest issues that we've had, as Councillor Ross brought to our attention, there's been a number of high cost voids, requiring a lot of remedial work. So in terms of our performance, we've perhaps put them to the side, not to forget them, but to concentrate on the quick wins so we can get tenancies in more quickly. But we are looking at ways to actively improve that. And if we do use subcontractors, we want to get best value for money. So doing a thorough tender process to ensure that. Regarding the loft insulation question, it's a good observation, Councillor. You're quite right. Loft insulation is a quick and easy win. The majority, if not, obviously I can't stand here today and say all, but as far as we're concerned, the loft insulation in our property should be up to 300 millimeters. The reason it's not itemized for you is it's predominantly captured just as part of our void process. When we do a void inspection, we're doing a thorough property inspection. We check the loft space as well for any tenant goods that have been left in a loft, and the maintenance officer will check the depth and coverage of the insulation. It's generally captured just as part of our routine works. So please rest assured, and I can offer some comfort, that we do check the loft insulation and we top it up where necessary. It's just not been itemized as a separate expenditure.
Thank you very much for your answers, Ewan.
Sure.
Oh, well, listen, thank you, Ewan, and thank you for coming along as well, Sheila. It's actually a really interesting report, and I just want to thank you and your teams for all the work that you do looking after the many tenants that we have across the area. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
So, see, I was getting excited for environmental health. I think we're on to environmental health now. So, Barry, welcome along. See, I was chomping at the bit for your report, one report too early, but
marvelous to be so eagerly anticipated. Very nice to meet everyone. With your permission, I have a short presentation, if I can manage the technology, to get a couple of slides up for you guys, if you're happy for me to show that.
Thank you very much.
With me. I'll just please tell me if this is working for you guys. Hello?
Yeah, that's fine.
Looks great, yes.
Excellent. Okay, yeah. Just a quick introduction. Good morning, everyone. My name is Barry Cumming, and I'm a Senior Environmental Health Officer based out of the Dingwall office. I was appointed to this post about 3 months ago, and I've come over to Dingwall after working as an Environmental Health Officer in the Inverness office, a generalist at EHO. The post became available following the retirement of Cliff Smith, who I'm sure many of you'd known. And before I start, obviously I'd like to say that I look forward to working with all of you collectively and individually over the coming years. So this is the first time I presented a report to this committee, and it follows on from a commitment that Environmental Health made in our operational plan to provide reports to area committees going forward. And the aim of presenting to you is obviously to make you aware of the work that we're doing, Environmental Health are doing, to give you an opportunity to provide the feedback to myself and the team as to any issues you want us to prioritise, and also to request feedback from yourselves on the way that we're undertaking our work in your area. As you can see from the report and the list in the appendix, environmental health duties are wide-ranging, but all have the general remit to protect and to improve public health. Much of our work is preventative and proactive. For example, our programme of scheduled food inspections. And our enforcement approach follows a 4E system, which is to engage with perhaps a business, to explain what's required, protect public health, to encourage a business, for example, to do the right thing, but ultimately, if necessary, to enforce if there's no other recourse and that the public health risk is deemed unacceptable. Now, environmental health, we operate across the Highland, but we operate out of 3 areas. There's a north team, which is Caithness and Sutherland, a mid team, which is Ross and Cromarty, Inverness, Badenach, Strathspey, and a west team, which is Lochaber and Skye. And I'm part of the mid team. There's 3 senior environmental health officers in the mid team, as myself, based out of the Dingwall office, and there's 2 others that operate out of the Inverness office. And our officers provide cover for the mid area from both offices. And there's a detailed team structure presented in the appendix if you need to see it. Our activities are split into 3 main areas. Okay, so we do reactive work, which is issues that are raised by the public, other bodies, or indeed identified by our own officers throughout the course of their own work. Our proactive and scheduled work, which is predominantly things like the food inspection programme, private water supplies programme, and work to do with licensing of establishments such as animal boarding, etc. And we also undertake formal enforcement where necessary. So all of the figures that I put in the report here are for the period between the 1st of April 24 and the 31st of March 25, preceding when I was actually in post. But the figures here relate to towards 6, 7 and 9 only. So the total number of service requests that we've had for this committee area for the year April 24 to March 25 was 1,118 requests, which is an increase from 800, just over 800 in 23-24 and just over 1,000 in 22-23. And the main areas, the main service requests relate to short-term let licensing, abandoned vehicles and other environmental crimes, including littering, fly tipping, etc., and noise. And our proactive and our programmed work It relates mainly to food safety in this area, premises visits and inspections, water sampling of private water supplies for commercial premises, which includes holiday rentals, that sort of thing, and also licensing for animal boarding, kennels, that kind of thing. As I said before, our enforcement is only undertaken if the risk to public health is such that other means, for example, engagement, explanation and encouragement, haven't worked. And in this committee area in the last year, there's only been one food safety notice issued to a food business and one farmed animal byproduct notice issued, and neither of them have been subsequently breached. So I've had a quick look, obviously, at the number of cases, and my understanding, just looking at the numbers of the primary local issues affecting the wards are short-term licensing, short-term let licensing, which at 279 consultations, that accounts for approximately 24% of the total number of service requests for this service, for this area. And as a consultee, environmental health, we're responsible for assessing the safety condition of properties, and we also deal with complaints relating to short-term let properties. Abandoned vehicles. Over that year, there was 167 reports of abandoned vehicles. I'd say last year, I think there was somewhere in the region of 1,400 across the whole of the Highlands. And it's part of my job is to review our procedures and our operational guidance to become more efficient in managing this aspect. And obviously within Easter Ross, I'm aware of the pilot being prepared with housing and parking enforcement to tighten up on this one. At noise, there's been 134 service requests for noise, of which 95 were domestic. A lot of those moved on to other departments within the council, but also 14 non-domestic commercial industrial noise type issues. And for dog control, litter, fly tipping, there are 68 reported incidents to the team for these things. 41 of these were dog issues, fouling, strays, aggressive dogs, that sort of thing, and 12 litter and fly tipping. And we've also done 9 proactive dog fouling and litter patrols in this in these wards over the year. And I just obviously about 3 months ago, just after I started, we also appointed a new education enforcement officer into the Dingwall office. So I'd like to see more work going on in the coming year for the proactive work that they do there. And obviously, I'm happy for suggestions of any other priority areas that aren't perhaps coming out through the numbers that you think should be considered over the coming year. On a Highland-wide basis, other issues for environmental health that we have, new animal licensing. Following the Scottish Government's consultation, the licensing of canine fertility services is expected to come into place in April 26. And it's anticipated that this licensing will be extended next year to cover dog walking and dog grooming services. For the regulation of non-surgical cosmetic procedures, such as microneedling, chemical peels in the epidermis, etc., there's an ongoing consultation by the Scottish Government, and there's likely to be a role for environmental health in implementing these new regulations. And also for food, OCV is a system that's come in through the FSS, Official Controlled Verification, and it's been introduced for high risk, the approved premises. Now, there's 8 approved premises in Ward 679, and rather than the previous system of a single annual inspection, there's now a requirement for ongoing visits and assessments throughout the year of these premises, which results in a significant increase in resource requirements from our service. So it's a very quick run through of the environmental health operations in the area, and ask you to note and provide any feedback on the range and volume of work that the environmental health undertake, if you've got any issues with the island-wide issues, and also to provide any feedback regarding the report format and content. And I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. I think it's a very useful report. It's been fantastic to have you here to present to us today, Barry. I think having such a knowledge and understanding of the wide variety and depth of subjects which environmental health comes into it just shows what a massive workload that your whole department has. So and I think I, for one, being somebody who sits on the licensing committee, you must be just overwhelmed, I think, with the short-term licenses coming your way all the time. I have a couple of quick questions before I hand over to members. The thing I was really saddened to read in the report was that it seems like it's really just about impossible to qualify as an environmental health officer at the moment in Scotland. And it is such a shame that there's not maybe some more proactivity from REHIS or whatever to get the qualifications in place. The other thing I was going to say was just to thank your department for all the work that's been going on with residents in the Cromarty area to look at the noise which specifically affects Cromarty coming from the port and various activities, because I do know that it has a massive impact on the residents of Cromarty and their mental health and how they feel about living in the village. So thank you for all the ongoing work that you've done to support the people of Cromarty there. Thank you. Okay. Richard, you are number 1 on the list.
Thank you, Lindsay. And thank you, Barry, for that report. Good to meet you. This is the first time I'm actually asking a question in committee. So I'm pretty new to the process, and I hope it's going to be an appropriate question. But representing Ward 6, and the issue in my head at the moment is specifically related to the port as well. So I noted your comments there, Lindsay. But the Port of Cromarty Firth, as it is manifested in Invergordon, is a trust port, which seems to have a degree of independence from local authority. But we have significant problems with noise, but also salt spray resulting from an elevated jack-up rig that discharges cooling water from under the deck. And in windy conditions, this salt spray is actually blowing over properties and gardens and people, and creating quite a few issues for people. And salt water being a pollutant from the point of view of gardening, it's quite an effective weed killer, is a concern. Does the Environmental Health Department of the Highland Council actually have any potential influence over matters like that when they emanate from a trust port?
Hi, Richard. Thanks for the question. If I'm absolutely honest, it's not one that I've come across before. Sorry, what is it? It's salt spray from an elevated.
Yes, there's a jack-up rig, you know, the ones with the 3 legs that come to the Firth quite often.
Yeah.
There's one in the Queen Dock at the moment, which is the nearest dockside to public areas. And one of these rigs has had the deck elevated quite high out of the water, more so than would be normal. And one assumes this is for maintenance purposes, possibly on the jack-up mechanisms. I'm not clear on that issue. But they operate generators continuously on these things for their own power supply. That's to an extent a source of noise. Also, grinding process operations to clean up steel and so on creates a lot of noise and dust. But the salt spray basically is coolant water that is drawn up from the sea effectively to keep the generators cool, I believe, and then discharged. So a bit like a car radiator, really. And it's the discharge of that cooling water that is released from the underside of the elevated deck. And so you've got a broken stream falling through strong winds, inevitably creates a spray.
Yeah. Okay. So the position of the trust isn't an enormous issue. If anyone is doing something that's impacting on their neighbours, then certainly it is something that we could potentially look into from a statutory nuisance point of view. If there's been noise, certainly if there's been grinding noise, noisy generators, that sort of stuff, then I don't know. I'm not aware of any complaints that have been registered with environmental health, but if they complain to the council, that will eventually make its way through to us for us to look into from a statutory nuisance point of view for those specific operations in that site. And the salt spray is honestly one I've not come across before, but it's one I can certainly look into and let you know if there's anything that environmental health. But are you aware of anyone that's actually raised this with environmental health historically in the past, or if there's been any kind of formal complaint put through?
It has been raised with me personally, and I've been wondering how to approach it.
Okay. Yeah.
Initially thinking of a direct approach to the Port Authority, but help and support. We're finding them quite difficult.
Yes, well, certainly. If you can stick it in an email to me, Richard, I can look into that, and I'll certainly get back to you on that one.
Fantastic. Thank you, Barry.
No problem.
Marvin, you look to be next.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. It was really interesting. So thank you very much for that. I was just looking to see if you could give us a bit more information about what can be done in regards to out of control dogs and nuisance dogs, because I know that's been a bit of an issue recently. And also in regards to abandoned boats. I know you touched on abandoned cars, but we've certainly got an issue in regards to abandoned boats around the Black Isle. So it'd be great if you could give us a bit of information about what all can be done to try and address those. Thank you.
Okay, hi Marvin, thanks for the question. Out of control dogs, as I say, there historically has been one person covering the Ross and Cromarty area. We have, as I say, just appointed another education enforcement officer, a guy called Chris, who is now supporting our existing person there. They deal with all these environmental crime stuff, the abandoned vehicles, barking dogs, noisy dogs, dog control, that sort of thing. Out of control dogs, there's kind of two ways. If there's a dog bite on a person, that is a direct to police matter. Dog bite on another animal, that will come to us, and what our officers will do is they'll go out, interview both the victim's dog owner, and they will then go to discuss if the identity of the person is known, to go and discuss that with them. And if they feel it's necessary, they can put a dog control notice on, which will, it may be that a dog can't be let off the lead, dog has to have a muzzle, that sort of stuff. So a dog control notice can be served by our officers if they feel it necessary to put something in to control a dog if it's deemed to be potentially that. But a dangerous dog is more of a police kind of thing, and a dog bite on a human is certainly a police matter. And your second question, abandoned boat. I mean, the legislation we use is basically a refuse thing, and it's about a motorised vehicle or something that's capable of being towed, and it generally extends to things like I know it extends to caravans. I can't see why it wouldn't extend to boats, if I'm honest. However, ownership is always a difficulty, and whether a boat has been abandoned. We get a lot of, if I was to give you an example, in the last quarter of this year, so this is from beginning of April, we've had 448 reports of abandoned vehicles, and that covers cars, caravans, food trailers, boats, that sort of stuff. And some of this is sometimes it's been left there temporarily. A boat or a caravan can be put into what someone thinks is a space that's safe or out of the way and stuff like that. So boat, I think, and also by the nature of a boat, it's a kind of thing that people may not use every year, if you know what I mean. So it's really difficult to understand and to find out who a boat belongs to. But it's one of the things I've spoken to my officers about, is perhaps we need to maybe do a little bit more kind of door knocking, that sort of stuff for certain vehicles. Where they have a lot to do. But I think sometimes, particularly in smaller communities, where perhaps someone does know that boat belonged to someone who's passed, or who's moved out of the area, and whether there's a contact that we can trace for this sort of thing. But I don't think it's outside of our remit. but I think ultimately it's a very difficult one for us to confirm that it's actually an abandoned vehicle. But yeah, it's probably not an absolute answer, but I think, as I say, it's just boats are one of them things that people leave for a very long time and sometimes don't go out every year in them. But you're right. I think certainly if it's in decay, if the trailer's broken, if the boat itself is smashed up or it's been vandalized or something like that, or it's beyond use, that falls into the legislation, which is about disposal of waste, basically. So I think it's harder if the boat looks like it's in reasonable condition, but it's just been parked up somewhere for a very long time. So, but again, each case on its own merits more.
Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
I was just going to very quickly come in on that because I think what Morven May said is really important, and it's very useful that there's a disposal of waste element, because there is one boat which is in particular falling to bits and dangerous, I would say. So it might be worth myself and Morven May perhaps getting a chat with you at a later stage.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
You read my mind, Lindsay.
You've got a specific boat in question, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Would we have anything less? Tamala, you are next.
Hiya, thank you so much, and thanks, Barry, for your report, and nice to meet you. Well, I have two questions mainly. I would like to get some advice from you regarding the Angel's Share, the ethanol evaporation mold taking place in certain areas in Invergordon. Now, I have raised this issue a couple of times with the environmental health group in council, and I have spoken to the White and Mackay, and they could not help anymore with the issue, though the actual issue starts from them, but they had no way of sorting that issue apart from washing up the signposts or the posts on the roadside posts, I would say. Now, there were a few issues raised by the residents, especially from the Invergordon area, that they have excessive amount of black mold growing in their houses, and it's having some impact on the certain people's health as well. If you are a COPD patient, also there is a indirect relation to their health issues. I've raised this with SEPA once again, and as we speak, I received a response from them. I will have to arrange a call with them this afternoon. I've got a response from the environmental health team as well, one of the officers from your team. But I would like to know, what can we do as a council point to support these people, because most of these houses are council owned, social rented properties. And according to your officer's response, we cannot help if it's a social rented property. If it's a private tenant or a private owned, we could help. But if it's a social housing, we couldn't, which I find a little bit awkward. So is there any way that we can actually help these people or come up with some sort of solution to help them? And the second one is about the rat issue. We've got a number of areas, especially in Invergordon and Allness, where we had the past few months with the summer and the good weather is coming up, the rat issues. I have raised this again, and I had no response from, unfortunately, from the environmental health team. But is there anything that we can help as well, Barry? Any support will be highly appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your questions, Tamala. Yeah, the first one, again, it's a very specific issue, the black mold, and I understand obviously impact on housing with people with COPD. I think, and again, I'm happy to discuss this outside of this forum if you've got any more information for me on this very specific case. But I suspect that when it comes to council housing as an organisation, the council, the council housing our response may have kind of suggested or alluded to that perhaps housing themselves in their own kind of property management side of things, maybe the most appropriate person to manage any kind of issues with social housing, black mold issues, things like that. I suspect that's maybe what the response is that you've had, or somewhere along those lines. But I'm happy to look into it as if you have any references for me. I can go off and look at specifically what was raised and what was responded, and whether there's anything that perhaps we can do with housing to kind of move matters along for you on that one. And for rats, yeah, obviously we have some powers to us with rats. It normally relates to rat infestations. And that kind of thing, where we can serve orders on an owner if we can actually identify a single property or a property that's a source of these things. But we do have, again, we've just got another guy who's appointed, a technical officer who's assisting now in the mid area for service requests, and he's I know he's picking up a number of rat complaints. It's quite often a case of just going around having a look to see what level of infestation it is, if it's a single rat or two rats, or if it's a whole family type thing. And I know he can chap on doors and advise people on things like feeding birds and scraps and waste food and stuff like that, offer advice. But as far as actually control goes, it's not something that we don't have a pest control capacity within, other than for the waste team at the moment. So within environmental health, but certainly for rat issues, we can go out, talk to people, find out what the significance of the issue is, and offer advice in that way.
Thank you so much. I'll catch you out offline regarding
Brilliant.
the black mold. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much.
And last but by no means least, it is over to you, John.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Barry. I just want to. I had rats down on my list as well, Barry, and I'm slightly concerned to hear that the council's approach is, well, just go and have a chat to people, because some of the infestations that I've heard about just need action, and we don't. I don't. Excuse me. These are council tenants, and I don't know. Do we have any pest control at all? What happens if these rats just need to be got rid of? That's one question. On page 32, could you just explain to me what the exempt domestic private water supplies are? I would have thought there'd be a lot more than. I know there's no requirement to register your private water supply, but I mean, even where I live, I can think of at least that number of private water supplies. So I just want you to explain what that term means. And I'm also looking at the area for Mid Ross, and just coming relatively new, it is a huge area with very different requirements. I mean, you take in Inverness. Is there any way that these areas could be improved in your view? Or I know you've only said you've been in place for 3 months, so perhaps it's an unfair question. Maybe we can revisit it. It just seems you've got the whole of Inverness and then some extremely rural areas, and it's spread basically across the whole width of the Highlands. It just looks totally difficult to manage, not unmanageable, difficult to manage.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, yeah. As far as the rat side of things go, yeah, I think hopefully I covered what we can't do. Commercial premises, yeah, certainly we'd be recommending to the housing teams to look at pest control, and I'm not aware of any ability that environmental health have to deal with pest control ourselves. As I say, pest control is something that is kind of move further down the line there. The exempt private water supplies, forgive me, I don't have a numbered copy in front of me. For the private water supplies, though, what we have is regulated supplies, and these are the ones that we do actually undertake annual sampling of, and we focus on these ones because they're commercial. They're selling their services, selling them. So bed and breakfast, hotels, any food manufacturer, that sort of stuff that actually has a commercial aspect to the business. Those are the ones that we focus our attention on and sample and test those ones. Ones that are purely domestic with no rentals and stuff like that are on a private water supply, we don't sample those ones. So I think if I'm honest, things like the short-term lets licensing is probably highlighting more supplies than we perhaps thought there were private water supplies in the system. The registration of a private water supply, if a short-term let is on a private water supply, then they have to register to inform us, and then we'll go out and sample it. But we'll also add it to our register of a commercial premises that requires sampling. So it's So it's kind of split into two: the commercial side of things and the domestic side of things. That's the commercial side of things that we sample, and I know there's quite a lot of them across the whole of the Highlands. And as far as the spread of team goes, I've been based very much in the Inverness office up till 3 months ago, and a large part of my work has been. It's occupied me in that area, so my eyes are opening up to this, to the size of Ross and Cromarty and the distances involved. So when you've got a food complaint and it's almost a day round trip to get out to look at a premises for a food complaint or a food inspection. Obviously we try to maximise and get as many things tagged on at the same trip as possible. But yeah, it's a very big area, Ross and Cromarty. So I think historically there's been a team based in Dingwall covering the whole of Ross and Cromarty, but I think with myself moving over, and also I think because we've created this mid team, we're now starting to use staff, specialisms as well. For instance, say the contaminated land team, they look across contaminated land across the whole of the Highlands for us. So we're trying to use people from the best area to cover the areas that we do have to get to, because geographically it is massive. Yeah.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you.
No problem, John.
Barry, that's been extremely interesting, and I'm going to be very cheeky, and I'm going to add on one last question to the for you. When you were talking about private water supplies, how is it that you're actually identifying where the private water supplies are? Does that come from council tax data, where people are not claiming Scottish Water or not having Scottish Water charges on their council tax?
I don't think that's how we find out. I think a long time ago, people were asked to register if they were a commercial business on a private water supply. We have a huge record of them across the Highlands, and as I say, the short-term lets is revealing more and more, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's still supplies out there that are being used for commercial purpose, bed and breakfast, Airbnb, things like that are on private water supplies. It's not a default search though to go to the council tax and Scottish Water one. I think a very specific query can be answered that way, but it's not an information sharing system we have proactively in place.
Okay. No, just being nosy, really.
To be quite honest, I mean, if anyone tells us of them, we can look into them. That's really it as well. It is. People know private water supplies that may have been domestic supplies that perhaps weren't registered, or new water supplies that someone's drilled and tapped into a stream or something like that may not have registered with either us or informed anyone like SEPA for abstractions, anything like that. So it comes to us from all different ways nowadays.
Thank you. Well, Barry, I'm telling you, this has been a very enlightening report, and thank you very much for your time today. And I'm sure you've given us a lot of information to work with, so thank you very much indeed.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. Cheers.
So next on our agenda today is the play parks, and John, we've got you there with us. Hello, lovely to see you, John.
Good morning, Lindsay. Morning, Chair and members. I'll try and be brief. Today I'm asking for agreement for wards 6 and 9 to spend £182,294, and that is £107,500 for ward 6 and £74,794 for ward 9. As I say in the report, we will have a wee delay in getting this stuff in because we're trying to get all in ourselves to basically get you about half as much kit again. So we're working on that. And without further ado, I think that's the basis of it. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Has anybody got any specific questions? Laura. Oh, you're on mute, my dear.
Sorry. I know that we're going to finalise with you shortly, John, hopefully what we can do in Ward 6. Will that just come to the next committee meeting, or can we do that out with that?
Well, what I'll do is once we've got it sorted out, then I'll bring it to the local members, and then if everyone's in agreement, then I'll take it to the very next committee after I get agreement.
Okay, John, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any other queries? All I'm going to say, John, is I am chomping at the bit. Whatever, I love play parks, and I think so many young people get so much out of it, and the right to play is such an intrinsic part of children's rights. And yeah, I would have it all installed yesterday. So.
Yes, it is a good news story. It's just been a shame it's been so long in the pipeline, but we're finally getting everything over the line now.
Great. Laura.
I know I'm wanting to come back in there. Sorry, I should have asked it last time. As for play parks that aren't, or that we're trying to look at to get in areas that haven't got anything, John, what happens regarding the adoption of that play parks? Is it something that the Highland Council still looks at, or is it something that we would have to look at somebody else taking on the responsibility of it?
I think we'd have to look at it case by case to see what the need in that area would be, because I think what we try and do is get, rather than 3 or 4 small play parks with not a lot of play value in them, we'd rather have one bigger play area within that community. So yeah, we'd have to look at it on a case by case basis. But I know that in some communities you might have a busy road that actually is one community, but you need 2 play parks because of a busy road and things like that. So we would have to look at it on a case by case basis. But a lot of the play parks are out with the council. Quite a lot of them are privately owned, and they're owned by other housing associations as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, John.
Brilliant, John. So thank you very much for coming along. Thank you for putting together the report, and I can't wait for a shot and a swing.
No bother. Okay, thank you, members.
Right, take care.
Bye.
How would you be all placed for a wee 5-minute comfort break then? Okay, so why don't we say if we're back by 12? How does that sound? So thank you for that wee short break. So now we continue on with number 8 on the agenda, which is the winter service plan, and I believe we've got Ian Mangreef with us today.
Good morning, councillors.
Hello there, hello. So if I can hand over to you for a quick bit about the winter plans.
Yes. So essentially this is the same plan as in previous years. We've got the same dritters, the same routes, and the same number of operatives. So councillors, do you want me to go through the report, or do you want to skip to the questions and answers?
I'm quite happy to skip to the questions and answers, but I will go with whatever the members feel at the moment. John?
I'm quite happy to go straight to the questions.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Same.
Well, why don't we start with who would like to kick off then?
We've no questions. Easy ride, free in today.
Yeah, okay, John.
Thank you, Ian. As you're well aware, I live in the hills. The ward that I represent have got snow gates, so winter maintenance is very important and very, very. It's quite a harsh environment in parts of the ward, so it's very important. And there's just a few comments. I'm glad to have your reassurances, Ian, that nothing's changed. But I would have to say that reading the report, that wasn't it wasn't obvious to me. In that I think next year, should we still be running a winter maintenance service, and I very much hope we do. There's a few things that I would like to see in the report, if that's possible. If you could just make a note, and it's a question. So, for instance, the map right at the end of the report, it doesn't show the Struy from Ardross northwards, which is in our area, getting gritted at all. Now, I know that's because of Sutherland, but it would be helpful to see that, so that we could make sure that it is part of a plan that we approve. And I don't quite know how it works when it's cross area committee. I'm slightly reluctant for us to have no input into how that service is delivered, or having any details about that service. The other thing is some of the rural areas, certainly in our ward, sometimes the actual service routes can change because they're related to school runs, and I don't have any information on how they may or may not have changed, and that would be helpful to just scrutinize to make sure that we're covering them as at least priority 2. And the other thing was yeah, I remember back in the day getting A4 sheets of paper, because obviously I pursued this quite a lot as Secretary of Community Council, actually with the route descriptions. And I don't know whether those are still published or whether that's something that you have. And if you do, it would be helpful to be able to look at them in future. Particularly because say, for instance, some of the routes are done 5 days a week and others are 7 days a week, and we have no indication in this report which ones are being done like that, or if anything has been changed. And I understand all the policies and the priority system, because you know, as I said, I've been following this for a long time, but a bit more detail I think would have been helpful. And next year, that if we could have that for next year.
Would you like me to take all the questions just now, or just answer them as they come?
Yeah, if you just answer them as they come, I think that's probably
Sure.
easiest.
Yeah. Yes, the Struy is managed from the Lurgan or Guy depots with my colleagues in Sutherland. I can come back to you on the cross area committee. We can add that the Struy route onto the map to say that it's managed by Sutherland. The route descriptions We do prepare a route book, but it's too early on in the year, and I can, once that's completed, I can send that out to councillors. As you know, school kids, well, families arrive in the area, families leave, and as families move on, so do the school kids, which affects the school bus routes. We talk to our colleagues in the travel team, and if we get if those routes change, then we have to change accordingly. That's just the way it is. It's a very unpredictable thing. You can't really plan for that, but it is what it is. And as those families change, we also have to change our route book. Yeah, I think that was the three issues, John.
Super, thank you. I've got a question for you about the community self-help resilience. There does say that, you know, that if communities are looking to have resources to help with winter resilience, that they can get that. Would they request that through the service point if there was members of the community who were looking to get equipment for winter resilience in their specific areas?
Yes, I think probably the best way to organise that is for a single point of contact within the community, names, phone numbers, and then if that could be forwarded to myself, Laura and myself will arrange for the high-vis vests, salt, snow shovels, etc.
Fantastic, thank you. It's worth knowing what the route of getting to that would be, so thank you very much for that. Do we have any more questions for Ian? No. Well, Ian, I think all that remains to be said is that yes, we're very happy to approve your winter service plan, and thank you to all the teams that do keep the roads as clear as they are in the winter, so thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll pass that on. Yeah.
Okay, moving swiftly on, is the 30-minute limit, and I think, is Scott Hunter coming in to also speak to this one? Hello, Scott.
Yes.
How are you doing?
Good morning. Yes, I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Would you like to give us a bit of an introduction to the report?
Yeah, of course. So I'm here today to ask members to approve the draft traffic regulation order, the Highland Council B817 Saltburn 30 mph speed limit order 2025, to which there has been one unresolved objection. So under 2.1, we ask members to note the background to the proposed speed limit order for Saltburn, in particular the collision history, the speed data, and the representations we received. To approve the making of the traffic regulation order, which can be found in Appendix 2, and to note the intention to carry out after speed counts to determine the effectiveness of the reduced speed limit. So it's all right, I'll provide a bit of background. So under Section 5, in response to a request from Saltburn residents for a reduced speed limit through the village, the Ross and Cromarty Roads Department asked the road safety team if we could undertake a speed limit assessment to see whether a reduced speed limit was justified based on current road safety conditions. So it was agreed with the roads operations manager for Ross and Cromarty to include the B817 in Invergordon as part of this assessment. So the assessment began at the boundary where the existing 30 mph limit ends in Invergordon, and it continued through the village of Saltburn. So in terms of the speed limit assessment, which can be found under Section 6, we evaluated the mean average speeds along the B817, also considered the route's collision history, the annual average daily traffic, and the number of housing equivalent units. So the mean average speed at this location was 28.5 miles per hour. The annual average daily traffic sat between 1,000 and 1,500. And using the personal injury collisions collected from the Stats 19 data, which is sent to us by Police Scotland, it was found between the 4th of February 2020 and the 5th of February 2025 that there had been one collision on this road involving two vehicles, and that can be found in Appendixes 4 and 5. It's worth highlighting that the police report noted that the driver of one of the vehicles had no opportunity to react when the other vehicle crossed the central road markings, resulting in serious injuries for both drivers. So yeah, there was 124 housing equivalent units found at this location, which met the average density requirement of 3 houses per 100 metres to support the implementation of a reduced speed limit. And essentially the assessment concluded that reducing the 40 mile per hour limit in Saltburn to 30 was appropriate. So this was agreed with the roads operations manager. So we undertook consultation. So 124 residents were notified as part of this. I'm pleased to say, as well as the statutory consultees, there were 16 responses received, 13 supported the proposal, 2 provided comments, just representations, and 1 objected. So the support can be found in Appendix 7. Essentially, residents liked it because it would provide greater road safety to pedestrians, and they felt it would be safer for vulnerable road users. Several respondents suggested that further traffic calming measures should be considered in Saltburn. So in response, we're going to carry out further speed surveys in the area to see if that's warranted. In terms of the objections received, as I say, just a single objection, which we were not able to resolve. It was made on the basis that the individual didn't think it would be any safer for vulnerable road users, and thought that the speed limit reduction was unnecessary. And one responder initially objected, but we managed to get them to withdraw that, but wanted comments provided that they thought the improving the condition of the road was a greater priority. So that's in terms of the report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that, Scott. I think it all seems very clear and straightforward, and it's really good to have the information from all the supporters and the objectors there. Tamala, can I bring you in first?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Scott, for the report, and I'm really glad to see some improvement there. We've been waiting for this, and so I'll quickly ask you about the. Sorry, my boy's singing in the background. Well, I would like to ask about the traffic calming measures. Are we actually looking to get like what do you call a smiley face or whatever you call it, or some sort of like camera detection in place, or is it just that we are in the phase of investigating at the moment? And also like to commend that I'm glad that we are coming to a stage where we are actually going to look into a more appropriate speed limit in the area, because this has been an ongoing issue for the residents as well as the pedestrians in that area. So thank you for your work. Thank you, Ian, for your work as well, your input as well. It's really important. And if you can give me a wee answer to that traffic calming measures, what you're planning on bringing into the area, that'll be lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, so should the speed limit be reduced and the traffic order approved, initially what we'd be looking to do is introduce the 30 mile per hour road rindos at Saltburn. We've got a contract which we're looking to put out for the 20 mile per hour programme, and we can essentially add the 30 mile per hour rindos to this location. Following that, as I say, would be sort of undertaking further speed counts, surveys to see, to monitor the sort of the compliance of the road and see if additional measures are needed, and we would sort of take it from there at that point.
Thank you.
I believe it's John next with a question.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Scott, for your report. I'm obviously supportive of this, but I have a question. The cars that are parked on that road at the moment, presumably they actually slow the traffic down because people have to stop when they do stop, because there should be two. They shouldn't be parked to so that traffic stops, if you see what I mean, to give way on that road. So that, but a 30 mile an hour speed limit is what everybody wants, and I think it will be a good thing for Saltburn.
Brilliant. Okay, Maureen, I think you're next.
Thanks, Scott. This is a question which probably you'll have to do a little bit of research on. I know when I joined council in 23, I raised the issue about 40 miles an hour going through Barberville because I had several residents looking for a reduction there. So that's the next village to Saltburn. Barberville actually has housing on both sides of the road, unlike Saltburn really. So if you could maybe look into that and let me know if anything is happening on Barberville. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, that's no problem. I know Ian's still in the meeting, and we have a monthly catch-up where we look at the sort of list of areas. If it's fine with Ian, we can add that to the list for next month. And yeah, happy to take a look at it. That's no problem.
Thanks very much.
No worries.
Fantastic. Oh, Laura.
Just while Ian's here, when can we expect the 30 mile an hour signs and road markings to go into Arabella now that that's all passed?
Yes. I'm going to have to come back to you with a date for that. We're still heavily involved in the capital programme, so I'll come back to you this week with a date. Okay.
Great. Well, if there are no more questions, are we happy to note the background, to approve the making of the TRO, and note the intention to carry out after speed counts to determine the effectiveness? Are we all happy with that? Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time again, Scott.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And well, thank you again, Ian. Brilliant. So we are now ready to move on to the common goods. So Paula, I think we've got you first, and then Lynn, and then Phil for all the various and many wild and wonderful common goods that we have. So lovely to have you with us. And then I believe we're starting off with Tain.
Right, thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this is in relation to the Tain Common Good Asset Register review. So the report before you details the outcome of the first review that's been conducted in Tain since the publication of the asset register as part of the Community Empowerment Act. So we are required to review these asset registers every 5 years. And yeah, this is the result of that first review. So the review basically it was an opportunity to enhance the information included on the asset register by including title deed information and rationale why properties are held on the Common Good Fund account. It was also an opportunity to investigate other properties that the council own that may have not been considered to be common good before. As you know, the council own a lot of properties, so it's a big task to investigate all properties all at once. So this review is an opportunity to be able to do that. So as a result of the review, there are several changes to the asset register, and these are detailed in 7.2 to 7.5 in the report. And there's a copy of the updated asset register presented in Appendix 1. Following committee, the updated Tain register will be published on the council's website, and relevant services will be informed to allow the necessary administrative changes. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are we all happy and content so far, Laura?
Sorry, Paula, just quickly, any work that have been granted to be carried out on the properties that are being transferred, will that still remain with the council budget and not come into the common good? I'm talking about the Dethick Centre.
Okay, that's something that will need to be discussed between the services in terms of dilapidations and what and how these properties are transferred over. I believe if there is existing works already programmed in, then yeah, that does require discussion between the services to agree what happens next. So
yeah, and will members be kept informed about that, or is that something we have to try and keep on top of ourselves?
That's something that can be updated via the community managers during area business meetings, for example.
That would be great if that can happen. Thanks.
That would be good. Yeah. This is where we've lost Derek, and he always had a handle on the Common Good Fund more so than ourselves. So as much information as would be appreciated. Thank you.
Fantastic. So it looks like everybody's quite happy and content there, Paula. So yes, we are noting the impact of the financial position on the general fund of the Tain Common Good Fund and confirm the reclassification of assets.
Great, thank you.
Super, thank you for that.
Yep.
Okay, sorry about the bang in the background there. The next one then is over to Lynn for the Cromarty Common Good Fund, and it's lovely bits and bobs just now.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Your report in front of you gives the end of year monitoring statement for Cromarty Common Good Fund for the 24-25 financial year and Q1 monitoring statement for 25-26. A couple of items to highlight. Section 5.1 of the report outlines that the end of year monitoring statement for the 24-25 financial year indicates a projected budget surplus of a positive variance of £717, and members are asked to note that the end of year statement for 24-25 are near final, so that's pending completion of the audit of Highland Council accounts. And the second thing to highlight is, as outlined in section 6.2, a community organisation has expressed an interest in entering into a lease agreement for the East Church Hall. I'm very happy to take any questions through you, Chair. Thank you.
I think I don't so much have a question, but just to highlight that the consultation is obviously open on the council website for for this particular change of use in the Common Good Fund, and just to encourage anybody who wants to take part in it to take part in it. Do we have any questions, or are we all quite happy and content with that? Thank you very much, Lynn, as per usual. Yes, so we are happy to, yep, fantastic. All that.
Great, thank you, Chair. Would you like me to move on to the Fortrose and Rosemarkie?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So this report presents again the Fortrose and Rosemarkie Common Good Fund end of year monitoring statement for 24-25 and the Q1 monitoring statement for 25-26 financial year. Members are asked to note that the figures for the year end are near final, pending completion of the audit of the Highland Council accounts. Again, just a couple of items to highlight for you members. The end of year monitoring statement for 24-25 financial year indicates a projected budget surplus variance of £16,074, which predominantly reflects higher interest and investment income and lower than projected property costs. And at the end of June 2025, estimated outturns at the year end is £34,240. And again, very happy to take any questions through you, Chair.
I was going to say, do we have any questions? Or just the same point as before, that, you know, there's obviously the consultations out for Rosemarkie, and it would encourage people to take part in them as well. But no, thank you very much for that, Lynn, and it's good to see that both those figures in terms of the income for the common good.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
So now it looks like it's going to be Phil and the Invergordon Common Good report.
Thank you, Chair. The report presents the Q4 24-25 and Q1 25-26 monitoring statements for Invergordon Common Good Fund. Rental income for the year was on budget, and there was additional interest as that was higher than budgeted. In terms of expenditure, the main expenditure was for the Common Good Officer for the ongoing work on the Bouchardon bust. In Q1 25-26, the rent for the town hall will be invoiced in due course, and there has been no expenditure to date. On the update, so the report provides an update on progress with the sale of the Bouchardon bust. An objection was raised regarding the export of the Bouchardon bust, and the case was considered at a hearing of the reviewing committee on the export of works of art and objects of cultural interest held in July, and we're waiting for the ministerial decision, the output of that committee. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any questions on this one? John?
Well, inevitably, I'm going to have to raise the matter of the Bouchardon bust. So, do we have a time scale at all for when the court will decide whether the claim to try and keep the Bouchardon bust in the UK is valid or not? Is there a time scale?
Well, we're waiting for the ministerial decision.
Oh, right.
So no, I mean, we're waiting for the minister to decide, but the committee has met, so we're just waiting for that to be announced.
Tamala.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil. Can I quickly ask, just in case the committee decides to object for it to go out of, to send it outside of UK, what will then happen? What's the next steps, or what options we have then? Thank you.
Okay, so we need to see what the ministerial decision actually is. But I understand that in general, if it's found to be of national significance, then the sale or the granting of the license will be deferred, and that gives an opportunity for a UK institution to make an offer that matches the offer that we've already secured. And then if that offer is accepted, then there's a further deferral period to give that institution the time to raise the funding. Again, we have to wait for the ministerial decision to get the details on that, but that's the process as has been outlined to us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil. So it's all just a waiting game now, really, for that particular item. But thank you so much for the rest of the report on the Common Good Fund. And yeah, so I think we will move on now to the Tain Common Good Fund. So that's you as well, isn't it, Phil?
Yep, thank you, Chair. The report outlines the quarter 4 24-25 and quarter 1 25-26 monitoring statements for Tain Common Good Fund. Rental income for the year 24-25 is higher than budgeted as the rent for the larger grazings was paid in advance. There was also an additional income from Circus Let. Again, interest was higher than budgeted. There was limited expenditure in 24-25. For 25-26, the rent is up to date, and again, minimal expenditure. In terms of update, you've just committee has just been updated on the asset review, and the Alexandra Bridge unfortunately requires repairs and is closed. Although I anticipate this will be the repairs will be completed quickly because they are not particularly extensive. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions or queries or comments? Maureen?
Just a question, Phil, thanks. The Blair Lathe, where the solar array is being proposed, that still stays with the Common Good Fund. Am I correct in that?
I'm not exactly sure where the which area was planned for the solar arrays, so I can't answer unless you know which grazing let it was.
I think I would have to find that out. I should have maybe asked Pauline earlier, because it's rather important that that one is addressed.
Okay, can we
Can send you a wee map over, Phil.
Yeah.
We've got a wee map of it.
Yeah.
okay, and then I can respond to you and Laura out with the meeting if members are happy for that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Phil, for everything you do with all of those. And then the very last thing I think is just for noting is the minutes of the last meeting. So thank you all very much for your time today. Sorry, John, were you wanting to come back?
Sorry, Lindsay, I know we just rubber stamp these things normally, but I just have a question. There's a couple of items, particularly 5, where there's a follow-up required, and I don't know how we monitor that as a committee as to whether there's been a response in getting back to us. Does that make sense?
Okay, normally it usually would just come back to yourself individually, I think.
It wasn't, it was minuted, so it was a general one for the committee. So okay. I don't know, I can't remember. So I just wondered how we deal with stuff that where, you know, officers say, well, we'll get back to you. Do they get back to the individual, or do they get back to the committee when they say you? Do they mean the committee or the individual councillor that might
I was going to say, Phil, if you're still with us, can I bring you back in? Am I right in thinking that this would be the case that the member would come back to individually?
Well, for example, I've just made a commitment to get back to members about the solar array. I was planning only to reply to Laura and to Maureen. So generally it would be with the member that was, or the members that had raised the interest.
And it would be their responsibility if you didn't respond for us. I'm not saying you wouldn't, but for them to make sure that that was actioned. Is that correct? Yeah, you know, yeah.
And generally officers will respond if they make the commitment committee, they will respond.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's clear that one up for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for your time today, and hopefully get a nice restful afternoon or have another meeting to rush to. But thank you all again, and I hope you enjoyed your first one, Richard. Okay.
Thank you for chairing, Lindsay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. Take care then, everyone.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Lindsay. Bye, everyone.